Hello out there, and happy Wednesday from the Podcast Daily. It is Stockwatch time. That is Bill Landis. This is Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. Here we go. It's that time of week. We get to pretend like
the Joker gif there. Here we go.
All right. You're definitely not going to do that, but it's funny that you said it.
I'm a bad Heath Ledger.
You are. A lot of options this week. A lot more than a normal week, so we can go up and down and pretend to know how stocks really work. Who wants to go first? Berm?
Yeah, let Berm go first. Tuimoloau is stock up.
Oh, man. He took the low-hanging fruit.
Bold and spicy take. He has turned from, one of those stocks that people are like, oh, that could be something, and now he's like a blue chip stock.
Ooh.
And I don't think that we're going to see him like slow down. I think that sort of game on Saturday against Penn State is one of those things that is just going to launch him like into another stratosphere. And I'm really excited to see that because as a recruit coming out of East Sammamish, he was a player that everyone thought he's really big, he's really athletic, but his tape in high school, there wasn't a lot of it. And you go, okay, but what is he going to do really? And to watch that athleticism finally mesh with like the upside and the training and everything else all at one time was really cool to see. And I couldn't help but be reminded on Saturday of the way that Chase Young played at Penn State in 2018 in his second year in the program when and Chase did it on like two bad broken ankles yep. Essentially. Bad news for Northwestern, Indiana, and Maryland. JT's ankles are fine, and I imagine that you're going to see him just take off.
Can't believe you didn't just knock on wood after saying that.
They look fine. We just watched him walk off the field.
Well, but there's 2 games after this week, so you just jinxed his health.
Oh boy, I'm sorry, America.
Just sabotage his own stock.
One time,
you don't?
When they were recruiting JT, I talked to his high school coach, and he told me that he's the kind of person who's like good at everything the first time they do it. And they like went bowling one time, and they were on a 7-on-7 trip, and he had never gone bowling before, and then he just like scored a 190 first time he ever played.
I believe it.
Yeah, kid's a freak.
It helps if you're like so strong that you can just use whatever bowling ball you want. He doesn't have to start low. Like, oh, no, I got to get this down with a 5-pound ball.
Imagine finding the ball that has like the big.
I'm sure that he just palmed it.
I have that problem. Yeah.
You got a custom drilled bowling ball if you got a big meaty sausage
Can't use a house ball.
Yeah, I know even less about bowling than I do stocks.
Sausage fingers. Look it up.
It's a real problem.
It impacts millions of Americans.
America, do what you can to support non-sausage fingers.
So, what's your first stock?
I'm going to go a little. It sounds silly because he's already so good and probably going to win the Heisman Trophy. But C.J. Stroud up a little bit. I think it continues to rise every week. Brian Hartline was asked on Tuesday about C.J.'s performance in the fourth quarter at Penn State. I thought it was excellent. I think he's shown tremendous growth in those high leverage moments in close games. There have not been many of them this year, but it happened in Notre Dame. It happened this past week at Penn State. It happened in the Rose Bowl. I think that's probably where you saw it for the first time was in the Rose Bowl last year, but it's been a steady incline from there. And it's like the guy that has all the tools that he has, the accuracy, the anticipation, the steady hand, to then like show all of that now at crunch time is really promising for a team that wants to win a national championship. So I think he is continually building up the makeup that you need out of a quarterback in the fourth quarter of big-time games. And this past weekend was just the latest example of that.
If we're just going to do the obvious ones to start the show this week, then I will take Marvin Harrison Jr. We're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, if you hadn't picked up on that quite yet. And, of course, he is in here again on the Monarch machine, getting work and catching routes currently on his own, queuing up. Look, he's got a deep curl there that he's working on right this very moment. He was very good already. The stock was trending up. People wanted to buy it all after the Rose Bowl. And coming out through August, I was like, yeah, I saw it. It was very good. There were question marks about the Utah secondary, and it was the only time he's ever done it. Like, let's not get carried away and say that he's going to win the Biletnikoff right now. And I thought, well, if you'd lost Jackson, this would be a little bit of a problem because you're relatively inexperienced with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. But boy, oh boy, have they worked through that in a hurry. And that performance on Saturday, it's like, it feels unfair that he didn't get to cap it off with any kind of touchdown. But I think the country that was tuning in, because it was 2 great programs and the threat of Ohio State losing, saw Marvin Harrison be an absolute difference maker and somebody who could, should, will win the Blitnikoff.
I just don't think you can't cover a guy who's 6'4", 205, and does the things he does, the technical prowess he has running routes, the strength of his hands, the way he uses his hands to catch the ball. Like, there's never a body catch. It's just everything he does is exactly what you want a receiver to do. And I just don't know how you cover him with single coverage. But you also still have to worry about the other guys at Ohio State. Yeah. So you can't just keep doubling him or triple teaming him, because then Emeka Egbuka will eat your lunch.
Just remember that when he does win the Blitnikoff, that I predicted that first.
Oh.
I also said he was going to score 500 touchdowns.
You said 27.
Maybe not happen, but
500 seems like a lot. Yeah. I don't remember you saying that.
No, it was 27. But he didn't score this past week, so he's got to score 6.
That was a bigger problem for you.
He's going to score 6 this week. It's fine.
Okay. Sounds right.
Yeah, and I want to go back to Bill's on C.J. Stroud. I think there is something to the fact that we watched him at Penn State in one of the toughest environments he's ever going to play in, and to come out and just sort of shut people up by saying, I can do this. And maybe it's a little different when it's 60 degrees and sunny, and then we'll see what happens on November 26th if the weather's different then. But that California quarterback thing
didn't bother him really in Ann Arbor.
It didn't, and it was pretty bad then. So I imagine we'll see something similar. But I think that there's just something so special about the Ohio State skill position players and what they're able to do, doing it in the Big Ten and in the Midwest weather. Because you look around the country, Tennessee's great. Like, they're playing great football. Come play in cold weather, and we'll talk at the end of November if it's the same thing. Alabama, Bryce Young is as good as it gets. But again, life is a little different when you get hit and it hurts really bad because your body is frozen. That's a little bit of here nor there, but just a weird thing. I think that for CJ to do it in that setting is definitely stock up. And I might get some pushback on this, but I think stock is up for Travion Henderson.
Do explain.
I think that he's a kid. Do you know that right now, like when Travion tweets, he has to turn off his replies for people that aren't mentioned because he's been getting a lot of very negative feedback from fans based on what appears to be some inefficiencies in the running game that are some perhaps attributable to him. But the fourth quarter on Saturday, he looked like a guy who was just over it. And the long touchdown run was the burst that we saw from him a year ago. The 7-yard touchdown run to really ice the game and put it away was vision. Like, it was obviously perfectly blocked, but he didn't waste any time. He saw where he was supposed to go, took the hole, and made the cut and got there. I think that you're going to see him, because we are somewhat skeptical that Mayan Williams is going to get a heavy dose of carries in the next couple of weeks. I think you're going to see Travion Henderson have a big couple games.
I think maybe I would buy that you are suggesting you should buy it now because it's going to go up. I don't think it went up on Saturday. I thought there were more issues that validated some of the vision stuff that I've been concerned about with him, and there were certainly plays that Ryan Day even not so subtly suggested were blocked well and didn't get the necessary yardage.
It wasn't flawless, but if I look at his first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, then to the fourth quarter, I think something seemed to happen.
Well, they ran different running plays.
Yeah, they called better plays.
That makes a difference. But he also executed them better. Yeah. And I'm just gonna choose to believe that Travion Henderson has figured it out.
I do think he's gonna hit his stride here, and assuming he plays. The other thing Ryan Day said on Tuesday is they want to try to get all those guys healthy. So I don't know what that really means. Even for a guy like Travion, he needs to get healthy too. But if he's going to be the man for the next couple of weeks, I think it's probably a good stock to buy. We saw another game where Tyleik Williams, I think, sort of put his entire repertoire on display. You like for him to bottle it up and keep doing it week after week. I think that's been the issue with him, is consistency. But I would probably say coming into the Penn State game, I felt like that stock was a little down. I would maybe consider it more flat now and improving and perhaps on the uptick after the way he played specifically against the run against Penn State. That's we've talked about it a lot. It's the thing that always comes back to for me with Tyleik is, can you be a space eater at 330 pounds, whatever he is, when the team needs you to be one? And I felt like he was one against Penn State. The pass rush stuff will come. He's really good at it. I think did he have a sack the other day? He had a sack and a TFL, right? Big time TFL on fourth down.
Yep.
That's more of the stuff I think you need to see from him. So it was nice to see it come out in big time moments against Penn State. They need more of it from him, because if they can get more than one difference maker on that interior to go alongside with Michael Hall, then I don't know what you do against this defensive line.
That tackle for loss may be one of the unsung plays of the entire game. I mean, that was the first drive of the second half. Penn State's leading 14-13. They'd already gotten a fourth down from their own 30-yard line earlier in the drive. They were sort of feeling themselves. James Franklin was taking some chances. They're at the position, the 18-yard line or something like that. And for him to cut through and shed a block and get to, they were running out of that little T formation, and he made an incredible play in the backfield. And it's probably one of those plays that we didn't talk about enough because it did have the sort of like stopping the bleeding that was potentially, if Penn State scores a touchdown there, we don't know how that game goes. So I agree.
All right. Which stonk is this?
Stonk.
It was too high in the offseason. It bottomed out in September.
I know who it is. It's Denzel Burke. If you stuck with it or if you scooped it up in September, good for you. Enjoy your vacation home in Malibu because he is back on the rise here. And like, I think it's important to be fair. If I'm going to be critical when guys are playing poorly, you should also say when they have recovered and are performing well. Early on, it wasn't really injury that was causing him those issues. He did have a shoulder in August that kept him out. You could say maybe the missed practice time caused for that slow start. Then he had the hand, and it was another setback, and it was up and down. But if that physically seems to be behind him, and he's not spoken the last couple weeks despite being requested for media availability, and that's his choice, I think it would be interesting now, especially with him maybe putting all that stuff behind him, to talk about the growth process, the learning curve that he dealt with, the expectations he came in with, and the pressure that comes with that. I think there are a lot of things that factor into this when you're talking about a true sophomore and somebody who Burnham has pointed out before, played wide receiver primarily in high school and was learning how to play cornerback and too much too soon. All these things, like there are 10 different storylines that you can attach to Denzel Burke and they make sense for why. But the only important part is that he's on the other side of it. And that's where I think he is now. It's going to help him if Jordan Hancock is able to get more snaps in the coming weeks, more than 30, which is more than I thought he actually had on Saturday, which is a tribute to the fact that he wasn't noticeable or making problems. If he comes along and takes some of those snaps away from J.K. Johnson and Cameron Brown, who I think is going to be back moving forward, the cornerback unit as a whole is going in the right direction, in my opinion, despite the issues that they had, primarily in tackling against Penn State. But Denzel Burke back on the rise, on a stock up in a big way.
I said it on our Monday rewatch. I thought he played his best game of the year against Penn State, even though you didn't see a lot from him, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
When you're a corner, if you're playing a good game, generally speaking, you're not going to be heard from or talked about because they're throwing away from you. The fact that Penn State was so obviously going after J.K. Johnson, I think, was indicative of the fact that Denzel was doing what he needed to do. I try to stay positive on this show.
Mm-hmm. You said you weren't going to make a stock down pick all year. That's what you said.
I won't, but I am going to say that all preseason leading into trying to figure out what Tanner McAllister's role in this defense is going to be. One of the things Bill regularly mentioned was that he seemed at times to struggle tackling for Oklahoma State a year ago when he watched film. And I'm going to say level on that because he definitely did not play his best game of the season on Saturday against Penn State. And I was a little bit puzzled at the fact that I think Cam Martinez only had like 3 or 4 defensive snaps and and Penn State scored a touchdown on that play, if I recall, away from him. But that's not the point. The point is I just think that at this juncture, I wonder if Tanner McAllister's role is where it is because it's some comfort with Jim Knowles, or if it's because he's doing things that are that much better than Cam Martinez could.
I think we're going to have to find out over the next 3 weeks. I mean, I believe that. Like, these games are going to be lopsided.
Yeah.
And if they don't do some experimenting at a few places where you can see that maybe there's...
Well, because you have to play for the future.
That's my take. Now, I don't know if Ryan Day and Jim Knowles will agree with that, but there's no... not to sound like Brian Ferentz, but like, it's a downside-upside situation. Yeah. Like, what's it going to hurt you to try...
What's the downside in this case?
To try Cameron Martinez against Northwestern. Like, as you said, they're going to be throwing a lot. You might learn a lot more. And if he doesn't make the most of it, so be it. We'll stop saying that he should play. I would like to know. Now, they see practice every day, so they're making those decisions informed. And Jim Knowles does have a lot more experience with Tanner McAllister. I get that. He's played much more solidly than I expected him to over the course of the season. But they have an opportunity here, and they're going to potentially play 4 more games after this stretch.
Yeah, I would like to see a lot of Cam Martinez, Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, Josh Proctor,
CJ Hicks, maybe?
CJ Hicks. I'd like to see a lot of those guys over the next few weeks, but I just think specifically with Tanner McAllister, last week he seemed a little bit hesitant to put his nose into the mix. And in the limited time we've seen Cam Martinez, who, again, much like Denzel Burke, was not a defensive back in high school, Cam has shown no fear of diving into a mix and hitting someone. So I think that's something that I'd like to see. And so for that purpose, I have Tanner as a flat stonk.
You want to see those things to like build depth? Is that what you're mostly concerned about?
I want to see what these guys are going to do in playing time, because all of them are going to be called upon to be probably starters next year.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that you need to take these next 3 games, which is in effect another preseason, a pre-conference.
Pre-conference bonanza.
This is the type of
mid-conference pregame.
This is the type of stretch where you can see what those guys are capable of in real meaningful snaps. Newsflash: Sonny Styles isn't staying here for 4 years. Kai Stokes isn't staying here for 4 years. They're likely going to start next year, because I firmly believe Lathan Ransom is going to head off to the NFL. Yep. And Ronnie Hickman's heading off to the NFL, and Tanner McAllister's eligibility is up, and he's going to go find whatever he can do at the next level. He's going to get an NFL shot as well because of his versatility. Those 3 guys are likely going to be your starters at safety, and I'd like to see all of them a lot over the next few weeks.
I agree with that. I just wanted to make, because I think there are conversations like the Tanner McAllister, Cam Martinez thing is a little different than like, let's see CJ Hicks.
Certainly.
I just wanted to make sure we
certainly this
throwing
is
yeah, those are not the same. Because I do think it's possible that Cameron Martinez could provide something down the
stretch. That's a 2-for-1
in
that
case.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I'll go stock down on the run game again. I was stock down on it last week. I don't really have many new thoughts to express on it. They just need to run it more efficiently, whatever that means. I don't know what they need to find to do that. Mixing up the calls, mixing up the formations, motions, whatever. There have been times it's looked really good. So I think it's mostly they need to go back to whatever was happening leading up to the bye week, because I thought the run game looked great, and I get the level of competition has ratcheted up dramatically with the last 2 defenses they played compared to what they played before the bye, but it doesn't mean you have to deviate from the plan that seemed to be working. And I thought the process was very good, and the design was very good prior to the last 2 weeks and this past week more specifically.
That's why on Tuesday I asked Ryan Day, like, how much in a game like that, because we sort of talked about it on the live show at Roosters on Monday, like, if there's an opportunity to learn something about your team, how much do you balance what we have to do to win a championship versus what we have to do to get through Penn State? And he sort of said, not at all. And I'm not sure that I buy it, but I don't know that it matters.
But it's a quirk that they were playing Penn State, and we're evaluating them through. If they'd played literally any other team and performed the exact same way that they did through 3 quarters and then pulled away in the 4th, I don't think you'd sit there and say, well, we wanted to try this, we wanted to try that. Like, it was okay because we knew we were going to win. Like, they could feel that way about Penn State, and I think that deep down that they probably did, but they also acted like it was the greatest win of all time and that they had to empty the chambers. Like, I do think there's an element that they kept emphasizing the running game to prove a point for later on, whether that's on film, whether that's, drilling it, repping it, I don't know.
Whether it's for themselves or future
foes,
maybe.
I think that I'm starting to think that happened. And if it didn't, then that's a whole nother issue that we have to talk about that maybe we shouldn't. I don't know, because they won by 13. Yeah, I think I'm going to steal a page from you and just say flat stock for Noah Ruggles. The 38-yarder, the first one, I mean, the 3 of them went in.
I feel like I need to go rewatch these kicks.
It's a positive.
I thought he was good.
The first one, from my vantage point, I thought barely made it. And then I knew before the second one, I told you in the press box, I said, there is no way. Berm argued with me. He was on the field. He had a different vantage point.
He agrees in retrospect.
It
would have been good.
It was short and right. It was
definitely right.
I don't think it could have crossed I don't think it was there.
It would have. By about 1.5 yards, it would have. He agreed.
Okay.
Well, I agreed that it was closer than I had thought live.
It would have went over, had it been straight. But it doesn't matter.
It wouldn't have. But
it doesn't matter.
We can. If you want to outvote me, that's fine. I saw what I saw, and I'll stand by it. And if I'm wrong, I don't care.
But it doesn't matter. No matter who's right or wrong, I'm right, but you're wrong, and it doesn't matter.
I just
okay.
Taking into account, you're thinking way back to the early miss. I don't know. It doesn't look like I don't know what the range is for him, because I don't agree that it was 53 or 54 yards on Saturday. And I don't think, and even if that one had the distance to get there, as you believe, I don't think you can consistently expect him to do that. Now, what does that mean against the next 3 opponents? Nothing at all. And a lot of the times Ohio State's drives aren't going to stall out in that exact position in the field, even against really good teams. So maybe this whole conversation is moot, and I'm wasting my breath and wasting time thinking about it. But I don't think he's the same kicker that he was a year ago. I'm not saying it's because he wasn't here in the spring. He doesn't look like the same guy in terms of the way he's hitting the ball and attacking the ball. It doesn't seem to be compressing at the same level to take it even further. I don't know. Maybe it's my eyes playing tricks on me.
I tend to agree. Watching a lot of pregame stuff on the field and I don't see him driving through the ball like he did a year ago, and I don't know if that's a style change, if that's an attempt at doing something different. I don't know if there's a potential issue that is hampering him.
Yeah.
All of that's sort of irrelevant. If Ohio State needs to win any of these next 3 games by a field goal, then there's much bigger problems. But obviously you want to figure that out by November 26th.
All right, one last one. Stock up for the video department. Katie's doing a fantastic job for Ohio State in there, and they're getting prepared every single week. You can't do that without film, so shout out to that crew, the work they've done. They don't get enough attention for that over the course of a year. That's all we've got for the Stock Watch on a Wednesday edition of the Podcast Daily. That's Bill Burnham. I'm Austin. We'll see you later on Wednesday night for some Snappy Jays.